A powerful hailstorm swept across parts of the central United States late Tuesday, leaving behind a trail of destruction that circled from Oklahoma to Kansas. The storm filled the fast-moving cold front colding with the warm, humid air from the Gulf of Mexico. Powdered hailstorm as large as a baseball as wind gusts exceeded 100 km/h. Meteorologists described the event as one of the most intense of the season. This was a textbook supercell outbreak, said Dr. Jenkins from the National Weather Service. The size and density of the hailstorm caused significant structure damage even of reinforced rooftops. Residents in several towns reported shattered car windows, stripped trees, and power outage that left thousands in the darkness overnight. In Norman, Oklahoma, emergency crew responded to dozens of calls as the hail pressed through the skylights and flooded streets. It sounded like someone was throwing rocks by the house of hail an hour, said local resident Jason Miller. Air travel was also disrupted. Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport reported more than 200 flights delayed. As aircraft were increasing for damage. Meanwhile, farmers in northern Texas and southern Kansas faced devastation crop losers. Early estimates suggest that up to 16% to local wheat cornfields may be affected, with insurance claims likely to surpass tens of millions of dollars. Authorities have urged residents to document property damage and say alert to potential flash floods as the warmer area turns to snowmelt accelerators in the coming days. The storm now moves eastwards, the forecast warning that heavy rainfall and possible tornadoes could strike parts of Minnesota, Illinois by the weekend. A violent hailstorm swept across large parts of the United States on Tuesday night, bringing chaos, destruction, and widespread power outage. The storm, described by meteorologists as one of the most severe of the year, tore through the Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas, pelted communities with enormous hailstones of ferocious wind. In several areas, held the size of golf ball and even baseball, crashed through the roofs, shattered car widespread, and stripped trees before. It was like the sky was falling, said James Harris, a resident of Wichita, Kansas. The noise was different. You can even hear yourself think. According to the National Weather Service, the storm system developing rapidly, a warm issue letting air from the Gulf of Mexico crashed with a strong cold front moving south from the rock. Within a minute, dark clouds rolled illuminated by the sky, and hail began to pound the ground with a lightning force. Emergency service reported thousands of damaged calls overnight. In Texas, hundreds of the vehicles were destroyed and residential neighborhoods suffered heavy losses. Power lines were turned down by the storm Gulf, leaving more than 120,000 customers without electricity. Some areas could remain without power for days, and the crew struggled to repair on the great amount ongoing severe weather warning. Agriculture, region where among the hardest hit were corn and the cotton field across the northern Texas, sustained devastation damage, with the early estimated suggesting millions of dollars in the crop losers.
哎呦我！哎呦我操！前头两步了，这玻璃打弯了。
Insurance experts estimated the damage could reach hundreds of millions of dollars, making it one of the most expensive hail events in recent Texas history. Fire department across the region responded more than 600 emergency calls, including hose, fires, sparks, and lightning strikes. In Austin, emergency shelters were opened to those displaced by the roof collapse and the flooding caused by the blocked drains. Meteorologists linking this storm and a strong cold front cauldron with a warm, humid Gulf air and a pattern increasingly common during spring and autumn. Dr. Mitchell Arena, a senior climatologist, warning, Texas has always seen severe storms, but what alarmed now the growing intensity. We're seeing longer hailstones and more frequent supercell formations. Governor Greg Abbott declared a state of emergency in several countries and deployed the National Guard and as the debris accelerate. In a statement, he urged residents to remain vigilant as further thunderstorms are forecast in the coming days. As the light broke since a destruction emerged, shattered skylines, stripped trees, and vehicles blanched in ice. Yet among devastation, stories and community resilience stood out. Volunteers from neighboring towns arrayed the tools, drops, and fruit. Texas are through, say firefighters Ryan Galver. In the Fourth War, we rebuilt together stronger than before. This week, a powerful storm swept across much of Alaska, bringing hurricane-force winds, coastal waves, and a dramatic glacier collapsed the flooded low-lying area in the state capital. Emergency service working throughout the night and clear roads, restore power, and reinforce riverbanks with the community's assessment the damage. In January, a long-awaited breakup of the Mediterranean glacier caused meltwater to flow into the Mid-Hill River, leading to record-high water levels that flooded yards and damaged small bridges. Authorities announced that a hospitably constructed system of temporary barriers protected hundreds of homes from much worse damage, and the residents are urged to follow evacuation instructions to weather warning. For the west and across south-central Alaska, storms wind knocked down trees, power lines, and forces of cancellation and flights and ferries. In Anchorage, its surrounding areas, crew responded to dozens of wind-related incidents, and thousands of people were briefly left without power, and key transportation links were disrupted. In the West Meteorological are monitoring an unusual August atmospheric river heading toward the Seattle area that could bring heavy rain in the fire-affected area to mountain terrain. For firefighters, that rain double-edged sword, it can help extinguish active fires, but also increasing the risk dangerous runoffs, mudslides, and rapid rise in water level in small streams. Authorities have urged caution to flood-prone cyclone and reminded residents living near the affected areas to be alert to changing conditions. Climatologists say this season activity in the parts and broad patterns, rising sea surface temperature and unusual atmospheric conditions to increasing to pollen storms and may be changing to nature of precipitation, making heavy downpour more common in increasing the danger to the coastal area. The NOAA seasonal forecast continued to predict increasing tropical activity this year, reminding communities to need the rainfall evacuation plans, secure board and unsure outdoor items to prepare emergency kits. Investments in resilience infrastructure, from improving urban drainage to safeguard rivers coastal defense, are becoming to operational priority as emergency services seek to balance immediate response to long-term adaptation. Over 200,000 customers were left without electricity and boil water notices were issued across multiple cities. The National Weather Service reported rainfall total up to 16 inches in parts of southwestern Texas. Meteorologists blamed the extreme weather as solid frontal body ray combined by the warm, moisture-rich air from the Gulf of Mexico. Climate experts from the University of Texas say punch prolonged an intense rainfall event to become a common pointed to water, sea surface temperature and shifting jet streams patterns. As floodwaters begin to recede, Texas and less comforting implants clean up to growing reality. These storms are not longer rare, they are a new dangerous normal. A massive and slow-moving storm system has plunged much to Texas into crisis, bringing life-threatening floods, destructive winds and mass power outage across dozens of countries. At least 14 people have been confirmed dead, over 3,000 displaced, more than 215,000 were left without electricity, and floodwaters continue to surge across the state. In Houston, one of the worst hit area, over 17 inches of rainfall within 84 hours. The greatest two related northern flash flood and the risk levels, which are especially dangerous steep slopes, left the borough in the recent firefighters in debris flow to landslides in the higher elevates. Although rain can help extinguish active fires, hydrologists caution the public in avoid low-lying canyons in the river crossing until the conditions waterway can be accepted. Connection and consequences by multiple events matter. Taken together, these events demonstrated how ocean warming, changing to seasonal circulation and local changes in Earth's surface can alter the nature consequences of weather storms, and the down energy from the warm sea. Warm air can hold more moisture to bring heavier rainfall. He left it to landslide that faster rooftop. The practical implementation of straightforward communities need both implemented preparedness to especially northern and long-term investments in the resilience, updated evacuated routes, reinforced flood definition of rivers and coastal, improving monitoring the global basins, and the small and the use planning in the area prone to flash flooding and landslides. Washington state is experiencing one of the most severe storms in recent years, which lasted several days, destroyed coastal towns, caused road to overflow, and covered cascades with a heavy snow, prone to hailstorm avalanches. Authorities confirmed at least 9 deaths related to the storm, dozens of injuries, and thousands of displaced people in western and eastern Washington state. In the key of Peace Country, overlapping streams and their south suburbs, living homes and habitable. I lived 40 years and never seen like this, said Howard Kim, the related teacher from Uber. I felt like nature was redrawing the map. Emergency service conducted more than 300 water rescue, many of whom cars abandoned to flooded highways. The Puget Sound region experiencing hurricane force wind that uprooted century old trees and damaged power lines. More than 315,000 customers were without power, and a peak this storm and outdoor continued several days in rural communities. Further service was suspended, isolated. Texas, USA, a massive hailstorm has battered large parts of the central and northern Texas, unleashed chaos, damaged homes, and leaving thousands without power. The violent storm struck late Tuesday evening, pelting cities including Dallas, Fort Worth, and Waco, with hailstones the size of baseballs. Residents described the sound of hail hitting roofs like a gunfire, as powerful winds shattered cars' windows and ripped through the neighborhoods. Meteorologists from the National Weather Service reported hail up to 7 centimeters in diameter, and wind exceeded 100 km/h. More than 215,000 households were left without electricity overnight, with emergency crews worked into early morning to restore power. It sounded like a roof was caving in, said Angela Torres, a resident of Arlington, who shared images in destroyed windows of water-flooded a living room. "We huddled in a bathroom with our kids until pieces. I never seen anything like this in my life." Local authority confirmed that dozens of vehicles were damaged and or totaled across major highways, and several flights for Dallas Fort Worth International Airport were delayed or diverted. Volunteers worked through the night, placing standards around the area when the water ceased slipping through. This system was built in the centuries to come, warned flood manager Diego Cho, and the river is reminding us for the earth. In the Salas and Pacho valleys, farmers waded through the rows and flooded strawberries and let touch, dealing the direct blow in the state winter produce. Further east, heavy wet snow blanket in this side, Sierra Nevada went turning into rain, wetting down roofs and triggering avalanches to melt water. Thunder it in a catchment bases below. Chris in a truck reached Salt Lake through cleared water pipes, knowing the clogged pipe cloud flood in the area and imagine a broken dam. Hospitals treated hypothermia, burns and carbon monoxide poisoned from the user generators indoors. Shelters filled with families with pets and garage bands to the launching community organization 100 up traps chanting to hot metals. Official reappeared to all refrain, turn back, don't draw, and the drivers tested they like a blanket rule. Forecasters said that this situation, warm seas, saturated soil, and suggestive storm turned original rain into crisis. When the skies finally clear, California will face a long day ahead, draining heats, inspiring dams and bridge, testing wells and inspecting system, and detailing crops losers. The alleged task will remain strangely in the state where the likely mine water and a camp faster falls 100 in the state longer where the wall recovered on the maps. Representation from the NOAA and Regional Meteorological Service note the common amid forecast to be above average season in the Atlantic in 2025 caused the high sea surface temperatures and climate conditions conduction of the storm formations. These conditions make villages and advanced preparation particularly impact of the year. Residents in low-lying coastal areas should check evacuation routes to secure loose outdoor items as the precautions. A powerful storm system has battered the state of Texas and led days of torrential rain, destructive winds and flash floods that have led a trail of destruction across the both urban central of rural communities. At least 20 people have died, hundreds have been injured, and thousands displaced of water raced rapidly across more than 14 countries. In Houston, intense rainfall overwhelmed drainage system. Buffalo, Bayonne, and White Oak, beyond bridge the banks, flooding highways, submerged vehicles and turned residential streets into rivers. Officials confirmed over 1,000 water rescue with emergency shelters went quickly to floodwaters in waiting homes. In San Antonio and Austin, with exceeded 16 million hours, down at recent power lines, flashed including caused clothes and businesses, while entire neighborhoods lost access to clean water. Basin County issued evacuation order for low-lying area as the river rose historic levels. Governor Greg Abbott issued a disaster declaration to deploy the Texas National Guard and State Emergency Service. Texas is racing, but the storm was pushed many communities to the brink, and he started. Florida experienced a devastating coastal storm that hit the coast with the violent winds, torrential rain, light theater and storm surge with the Big Bear, Tampa Bay, and the Sun Coast. In low-lying areas, COS bridges alert the flooded combs. Inland, torrential winds turned streets into fast-flowing channels, overwhelmed during system and washing cars and flooded interactions. Emergency service continued hundreds of rescue operations from St. Petersburg to Dealkir. Gusts of winds broke power poles to separate debris across Darkness Avenue. The water rose clouds at fast-moving tide, said Angela Ruiz, San Tampa. 1 minute it was ankle-deep, in the next it was a car. Airports restricted operations, Interstate Highway I-75 and I-95 were closed, and Barry Island were temporarily cut off, bridges were changed for damage. Along the natural coast, still water flooded into marshlands and sanctuaries, threatening outlet parks, circus and stuff by groves reported standing water that could remain several days.